Hello again. This book, Glock, The Rise of America's Gun, um, is rather puzzling to me because I'm not sure who it was written for. Uh, Paul Barrett, who wrote it, is a journalist, and he did some lessons with Masayub to try to understand the mechanics of shooting. But the book quite laboriously explains shooting terms, things like what double action means and things like that, um, in a way that all shooters will find very tedious. And I wonder why non-shooters would want to read a book about a firearm. However, it was a New York Times bestseller, so what do I know? Um, as usual, when writing about Glock, it's described as being a unique pistol, um, where really almost everything about it has precedence somewhere else. Um, Possibly the unique factor about it is plastic sights. The trigger mechanism, the firing mechanism, comes from the Rothsteyr 1907 pistol, and the lockup comes from Browning. However, it was the whole package struck most of us as being a bit different. And when I first picked one up at Bisley, I think it was, at a gun show, um, I, I, I it was the original Glock 17, and it was slick. There were no grooves or stippling on it, and the slide was very heavy in comparison to the frame, so it seemed lopsided. Well, of course, that doesn't really occur when you've got a fully loaded weapon. This was an empty weapon on a display. So, also at the time, I wasn't really into 9 millimeters. I used to bow three times towards gun sight and shoot a 45. Later on, I went to the P7 in 9 millimeter, and from then on, accepted 9 millimeters. But then in 1988, I think it was, on a bodyguard course in America, one of the guys turned up with the Glock 19 and invited me to try it out, and it was amazing. It fitted my hand perfectly, shot very, very well. I've never had a problem with the Glock trigger. Some people think it's frightful and they modify it in all sorts of ways. I picked up loads of different Glocks, and the triggers don't seem to be a problem for me. But that's me. The sights were okay, and it was a nice compact package. And I subsequently bought one myself and shot it. Well, still had it when Tony Blair disarmed us. And then the book, going back to the book itself, it's got some interesting stories in it. One I found really fascinating was that Glock, the American side of Glock, is based in Georgia, and they used to wine and dine potential customers and clients and so on, and take them to a gentleman's club in Atlanta. And there was a shot show coming up, and the idea was to have some attractive ladies on the stand. So they decided to hire one of the dancers from the club. Um, Her name was Sharon Dillon, and they said, "Well, she's going to have to answer questions at the shot show, so let's give her some training." And they put her through the standard 4-day course that they were running, alongside police officers, guys from Department of Defense, SWAT team members, and all sorts, but kept her identity secret. And she became the top shooter of the class and was the only person to score 100% in the written tests. So that says something about the standard of law enforcement training, I would guess. Other parts of the book are concerned with the feuds within the Glock family and lawsuits and all sorts of things. Really not really that much of interest to shooters. We're more interested in the weapon itself. The acceptance of the Glock by US law enforcement was something of a miracle, because at the time the revolver ruled, and particularly American-made revolvers, Colt and Smith and Wesson. So here's something that seemed to be made out of plastic, comes from somewhere in Europe called Austria, carries a strange Germanic name, and is a semi-automatic pistol. However, against all that, it took over completely, not only US law enforcement, but the military worldwide, and countries from Jordan to Norway adopted it. And it's been a phenomenon. So the story did deserve telling, and the book tells the story. And I think that's the interesting part of it, why it became such a success against all odds. And it's really interesting because the current generation of shooters who are issued a Glock, to them that's the pistol, that's the current service pistol, and yet those of us who were there during the progression realise what an amazing feat it was to get it adopted so widely. One of the controversies was about the lack of a safety catch, or an affirmative safety catch on the weapon, and that led to endless discussions. There is a safety lever on the trigger, which is nonsensical if you think about it, but there's no other safety catch. But what it taught everyone was to keep your finger off the trigger, to learn how to draw the weapon and reholster the weapon safely without impeding the trigger in any way. And I always used to make the point, because a lot of people used to rely on weighted trigger pull as a safety, with double action weapons, for example. Some of them, well, the revolvers don't have safety catches, and most of the autos don't. And it's just the weight of the safety of the trigger, and the under stress, your grip will defeat the trigger pull of any weapon that's suitable to be used on a range. So it caused a reevaluation of how people were trained for the better. Are there accidents with Glocks? Yeah, sure. There's accidents with everything. There were some problems with the Glock 20s and 21s. I've seen the results of that. Problems with some of the 40s and so on, with ammunition. Not incorrect ammunition, using factory ammunition and premature ignitions. But I think different generations have ironed it out. They did do a recall and some time ago, and or they offered a kit and you fitted it into your pistol. I picked up a kit at a gun show. Oh, the guy actually fitted it into my 19. So that happened. But apart from that, it's been a world beater, and the book does detail that, and it makes an interesting read.